different publications, Economic Times, Hindustan Times, and she's also known for taking classes not directly as a teacher, but still different facets at different places. Over to you, ma'am, and we are obliged that you have accepted to our request to give the insights to the students of law, lawyers, and all judicial officers. And since the topic is such, even the businessmen, etc., can also would be logging on, since we are live on the Facebook, YouTube, and on this platform itself. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Vikas. It's a privilege to be a part of these lecture series that are being conducted by Beyond Law CLC. And I truly appreciate your motto to give back and to share knowledge. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity. The topic I'm going to share with you today is the new Faceless assessment scheme. Focusing largely on it, the broader platform is what we call transparent taxation. The Prime Minister on 14th of August launched the transparent taxation platform, and the key features of the platform are faceless assessment, faceless appeals, the taxpayers charter, and e-communication of information with the taxpayer for all proceedings. What exactly is faceless assessment? You're all taxpayers, so I'm sure you're all aware that when your case was selected in scrutiny, you received a notice and you responded to it by attending the income tax office, either personally or through an authorized representative. Now that changes. The notice that you receive is going to be through your e-filing portal. You're already filing returns through your e-filing portal. The notice you receive will be on the e-filing portal. Your response as a taxpayer will be on the e-filing portal, and you will receive a draft assessment order on the e-filing portal to which you can object or to which you can agree. If you agree, you'll receive the final assessment order. If you object, there will be a process that will be followed. So this is the taxpayer's side of the interface. You are communicating with the department, sitting at home, sitting in your office, and you're communicating through the e-filing portal, period. There is no person-to-person interaction or contact with your local income tax office. Your case is not going to be assessed in your local income tax office. So this is the taxpayer's side of the interface. Now let's go to the other side of the interface and look at how the department is organized to handle your assessment. At the heart of the faceless assessment scheme is the National E-Assessment Center. The National E-Assessment Center is headed by an officer of the rank of Principal Chief Commissioner, and they will be issuing all notices in all cases that are picked up in scrutiny. Earlier, we had both a computer-aided selection, and there was also an element of cases that were picked up by the local AOs based on information that they received regarding evasion of taxes. No longer the case. All scrutiny assessments will be information-based, will be selected by the National E-Assessment Center, and notices issued in those cases. Once notices have been issued, these cases will be randomly assigned to what are called the regional e-assessment centers. So if I were to give you the example of, say, the Northwestern region, which comprises of J&K, Punjab, Haryana, Himachal, and the UT of Chandigarh, then we have two REACs, one in Ludhiana and one in Shimla, two regional e-assessment centers, both headed by officers of the rank of Chief Commissioner, who have numerous units under them. The National E-Assessment Center, once it has issued the notices, is going to assign your case. Let's take Vikas's case is picked up in Scrutiny. He gets a notice from the National E-Assessment Center, and then the National E-Assessment Center will randomly assign it to an REAC. The REAC could be located in Kerala. So it goes to Kerala REAC and then is assigned to a PCI, to an assessing officer who would, under the REAC, there are PCIT REACs, Regional E-Assessment Centers. So there's a principal commissioner, there is an additional commissioner, and then there are assessing officers, ITOs, assistant commissioners, and DCITs. The cases are assigned to randomly. The assessment unit, now this is what we call dynamic jurisdiction. Earlier, we had territorial jurisdiction. So an assessing officer had jurisdiction over, say, sectors 1 to 5 of Chandigarh or sectors 17 to 27 of Chandigarh. No longer the cases. This is now what we call a dynamic jurisdiction. You're assigned a case and you frame a draft assessment order in that case. If there is any inquiry to be made or there is any legal issue to be decided, under the PCIT, there are units called the technical unit and the verification unit, TU and VU. So if I need to get a verification made, we have a section called 133.6 in which we can issue summons, make third-party inquiries, or if there is a requirement to look at books, etc., then the verification unit is going to do it now. So as an assessment, the assessment unit prepares a draft where they want to get inquiries made, look at books or whatever. They refer the case to the verification unit. If there is a legal issue that they want, they want an advice on, it goes to what is called the technical unit. Now, a draft assessment order is framed after considering the responses of the taxpayer, and then it is again sent to the National E-Assessment Center. The National E-Assessment Center refers it to what is called the Risk Assessment Unit. The Risk Assessment Unit will decide, after getting a response from the taxpayer, whether it needs to be referred for review. If there's a fairly substantial difference in what the assessment unit is proposing and what the taxpayer is agreeable to, then it will be referred to what is called a review unit. The review unit again reconsiders the case and sends it back to the National E-Assessment Center, which will refer it to another assessment unit, not the original one, to a different assessment unit to again examine the case and frame another order. If the assessee is agreeable to the order, it'll be signed and issued by the National E-Assessment Unit. If they're not agreeable, well, then this is where it ends. After one review and the reference to the second assessment unit, the order is issued, and this is your new scheme for faceless assessment. No longer will an assessing officer have the discretion to, the common complaint was that AOs had a lot of discretion, that there were high-pitched assessments that were framed, that, the assessments were not framed objectively. All of those complaints are taken care of by the faceless assessment scheme, because objectivity comes in when there is a draft assessment order is examined by the risk assessment unit, then by the review unit, and then finally by another assessment unit. These are also team-based assessment. No longer is an assessing officer working alone. In almost all cases, the range head will be actively involved with the assessing officer. For inquiries, the verification unit is involved. For legal inputs, the technical unit is involved. So it's a team-based assessment. And we hope that this is going to address a lot of the taxpayer grievances that have often been flagged by taxpayers. So that's your faceless assessment scheme. The other aspect to it is, as far as the taxpayer is concerned, that really what changes is that you no longer have to go to the local tax office. You no longer require to, to deal with, or you will not know who your assessing officer is. Your responses are all going to be routed through your e-filing portal. Please ensure, as a taxpayer, that you regularly check your e-filing portal, because your notices, your draft assessment orders, whatever submissions you have to make, your questionnaires are all going to be received on that. So is it clear now what is the, what is the taxpayer end and what is the back end as far as the department is concerned? Mr. Chatrath, is that clear? So the other aspect now
Yes,
is the other aspect is faceless appeals. What was the earlier scenario? You filed an appeal; these were filed online, and the CIT appeals called you for a hearing, a local CIT appeal. No longer the case. You file your appeals online. There's going to be a national appellate center which is going to issue you a notice and assign your case randomly to a CIT sitting anywhere across the length or breadth of the country. If there is any kind of, the CIT appeals will issue a questionnaire, take your submissions on record, and frame a draft appellate order. If the taxpayer does not agree with the additions proposed, you see, if the taxpayer agrees, whether it's assessment or appellate order, the order is signed and issued. If he does not agree, then the National E-Assessment Center will issue you a show cause notice and refer the case for review. Now, in the appellate scheme, just like in the assessment scheme, if the taxpayer doesn't agree, it can be referred for a review to another CIT appeals. So both assessment and appeals now becomes anonymous, faceless, and there is a great deal of objectivity introduced through a team-based process of assessment, and not a, you could say for appeals as well, because the appellate order, the draft appellate order is going to be reviewed by another CIT appeals. The third important ingredient of transparent taxation is the taxpayers' charter. We have 130 crore Indians, as Prime Minister Narendra Modi pointed out when he launched the transparent taxation platform on the 14th of August. He mentioned that there are 130 crore Indians, but only 1.5 crore pay tax. And we want to believe that every taxpayer can be relied upon to furnish a correct statement of affairs. And as part of that, we have what is called the Taxpayers Charter. And the Income Tax Department, as part of this charter, commits to provide fair, courteous, and reasonable treatment, treat the taxpayer as honest, provide a mechanism for appeal and review that is fair and impartial, provide complete and accurate information, timely decisions, and collect the correct amount of tax. As part of transparent taxation and faceless assessment, when a draft assessment order is examined by the taxpayer knows the additions that are being proposed. And if he doesn't agree with those, they are being reviewed. And after being reviewed, they're going to a second assessment unit. It is hoped that the element of arbitrariness, of of any kind of lack of impartiality will be taken care of. On the system, if there are delays in dealing with a case after a notice has been issued, in issuing a questionnaire, in taking up the responses given, there will be flags on the system that will be communicated to the team right up to the top. And it will ensure that work is done in a timely manner. What we observed earlier was that most of the assessments got framed in the last month before they were due to be barred by limitation. We hope that now, when everything is visible online, both to the taxpayer and to the income tax hierarchy, work will be taken up regularly and finalized within time. We also commit to respect the privacy of the taxpayer, to maintain confidentiality, to hold our authorities accountable, to enable the taxpayer to have a representative of his choice, to provide a mechanism to lodge a complaint, to provide a fair and just dispute resolution system, publish service standards and report on their compliance periodically, and to reduce the cost of compliance. We believe that faceless assessment will reduce considerably the cost of compliance because you no longer have to make trips to the income tax office or to the CIT appeal. You can do it from the privacy and comfort of your home, and all we ask in return to all the commitments that we make as part of the Taxpayers Charter is that we expect our taxpayers to be honest and compliant. Because we trust you and treat you as honest, we request you to be informed, to keep accurate records, to know what the representative does on your behalf, and to respond in time and pay in time. That is the third important aspect of the Taxpayers Charter. And the fourth and most important aspect is that every communication that is issued by the department will carry a DIN, which is a document identification number. If you get a communication that does not carry a DIN, feel free to ignore it. Without a DIN, a communication is not a valid departmental communication. This is one way of ensuring accountability and keeping track of all the communications with the taxpayer. So that is your faceless assessment, faceless appeals, the Taxpayers Charter, and the electronic communication with all taxpayers as far as possible. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the residuary aspect. And again, I'm going to focus on NWR because that is what we know, and it's easy to, it's easy to let you know how to go about it. We have now two chief commissioners who look after, one who looks after Punjab, which is the Chief Commissioner Amritsar, and one that looks after Haryana and is based in Panchkula. That is the Chief Commissioner Panchkula, looking after all of Haryana, and all of Punjab and J&K looked after from Amritsar. So the residuary charges essentially will take care of the maintenance of the physical record. The most important work that they'll be doing will be the follow-up of litigation. So all the assessments, once framed, go to the CIT appeals. Once the CIT appeals order comes, then whether we file an appeal before the ITAT or not, and once the ITAT orders come, whether an appeal is to be filed to the High Court on a question of law or not, that is the most important part that is going to be taken care of by the residuary charges. So the residuary charges continue to have what is called a territorial jurisdiction. when we spoke about the faceless assessment, we spoke about what is called a dynamic jurisdiction, because cases are going to be randomly assigned, and case pertaining to Kerala. Now, the first set of cases have been received by the e-assessment units, and cases pertaining to Maharashtra, to Chennai, to Kerala have been received by the assessing officers who are sitting in Amritsar. And cases pertaining to Tarantaran and Bathinda are probably being taken up down south, or maybe even in the northeast. The residuary or the territorial charges continue to have a territorial jurisdiction. So let's say Amritsar charge, we have 5 principal commissioners. There's one in Amritsar, one in Srinagar, one in Ludhiana, one in Jalandhar, and one in Patiala. So these are the 5 principal CITs, and they look after the residuary work of litigation, taxpayer grievances, if there is action required to cancel an assessment or to review an assessment, and the action under Section 148, or the demand recovery, the cleaning up of the demand, the rectification orders, all of that is going to be taken care of by the territorial or the residuary units. So this, in a nutshell, is the new transparent taxation, which tries to ensure that there is transparency and a lack of discretion, and an objective assessment of the taxpayer's statement of affairs. I'm happy to take questions. And if there's anything else you'd like me to talk to you about, we could do that. Or there is any lack of clarity in any of the areas that were
covered. As they say, once you hear from a good speaker, the clarity is there, but there are certain more clarity which one requires to consider. So we have certain questions, we will take it.
Go ahead.
Yeah. This is by Raj. He has 2 questions. Is there any way a company can get all dues clear income tax certificate so that later harassment from the tax authorities can be avoided? And the other question is that isn't sending a notice to a company or a person for 2004 transaction in the year 2020 shows that IT department needs to work more efficiently?
No, I don't think, unless the company had a foreign bank account or some kind of undisclosed foreign assets, where limitation does not apply. Typically, it is either 4 to 6 years. 6 years is the outer limit for picking up cases under Section 148. I'm not sure how or why they've got a notice pertaining to 2004 and 2020. It doesn't seem possible unless black money or, there is some, in which case there's no limitation, or foreign assets or foreign bank accounts are involved.
Since you are here, though we were to discuss on faceless assessment, but one question which comes in the mind of a common man is, who is responsible for survey and search?
No, just one moment. You also asked whether the company could get a no dues certificate, you said?
Yes.
Yeah, that shouldn't be, that should not be difficult. And why would anybody harass you if you did not have a no dues certificate? I'm again not clear about the question. Okay. So we have, you see, now you are in a position to actually view your own outstanding, because you file your returns, you get your, I believe that now we are very good with processing and refunds. The average time taken to process cases and issue refunds is, I think, about 1 month. People who file their returns this year for financial 1920 have got their refunds. Am I right? Or Is
Yeah,
that not the case?
normally we get, and we
You're
get
getting,
straight away the email that you have,
yeah.
the refund has
So
also been done. Let's assume the
why,
assessment has been.
why would you be harassed if, I mean, if you have outstanding tax arrears, you're not going to get a no dues certificate. And we are obviously, it's incumbent upon the department to effect recovery if there are arrears outstanding. Otherwise, if there are no arrears outstanding, there should be no problem to give you a new dues certificate for each assessment year. You can say that for assessment year so-and-so, no dues are outstanding. It should not be a problem.
This is
But
a question, ma'am. This is a question which normally comes in the mind of a common man. Who is responsible for survey and search operations?
so, good question. I'm glad that you asked. Earlier, surveys were conducted by the local, tax officers. Surveys and searches were always conducted by the search and seizure wing. It's called the investigation wing, and they continue to be conducted by them. But again, there is a lot of oversight that has been introduced into the approvals to be granted for conducting a search. So at a very senior level, searches will be approved, and surveys too will now be conducted by the investigation wing. The local office will no longer conduct any surveys. So there was always a concern, people always were concerned about how the local office could use that as a leverage sometimes to, but no longer the case. All surveys and searches will only be conducted by the investigation wing, and there's a lot of checks and balances that have been introduced in the approval to be granted for the conduct of such an operation. And let me tell you that there is a very detailed, what we call a SAT note, a satisfaction note, that is always recorded before any such action is taken. So it's not something that is, random or left to any single person to decide. It goes through a process of approvals to a very senior level.
Then since it's we are saying of a faceless assessment, would it all be through artificial intelligence, or there will be some dedicated staff?
So the data that we are collecting, again, a good question that you have asked, and I think it's important that I just tell you that we have what is called the statement of financial transactions. And this is section 285, capital B, capital A, read with rule 114E. Please do not think that just because everything is faceless and the local tax department is not sort of watching you, that there is no oversight. The oversight is going to be through artificial intelligence and data mining. And what is the data that's going to be mined, or how is the taxpayer profiling going to be done? This will be done through the data that is collected through the statement of financial transactions, where we get third parties to report to the department about various transactions. So the scope of the SFT under Section 285BA has been enhanced. Now, whenever you pay a donation to an educational institution that is above 1 lakh per annum, or your electricity consumption is above 1 lakh per annum, or you're traveling domestic business class, or you're traveling, traveling abroad, or you're making a payment to a hotel that is above 20,000, or you're purchasing jewelry, white goods, paintings, marble above 1 lakh, or your deposits in your current account are above 50 lakh, your deposits or credits in a non-current account are above 25 lakhs, you're paying property taxes above 20,000 or life insurance premium above 50,000 and a health insurance premium above 20,000, or you have share transactions in your demat account, what's going to happen is that that data is going to be filed by the insurance company, by the banking company, by the by the entity to whom you're making the payment. They're going to file a return, and that data is going to be profiled along with your PAN using artificial intelligence and data mining techniques. So that is going to be the basis for the cases that are selected in scrutiny. Does that answer your question, Mr. Chatrath?
Yeah. Now, we are also hearing about Vivad and Vishwas scheme.
Yes, I'm glad you raised that again. So, Vivad se Vishwas is an extremely taxpayer-friendly scheme. And I would request all of you to please spread the message far and wide, because this scheme requires you to file your application in what is called Form 1 or Form 2, again online. If you've got litigation pending as on the 31st of January 2020, all litigation that was pending prior to and up to 31st of January 2020, you are eligible to file for Vivad se Vishwas. Why is the scheme so favorable to a taxpayer? The demand outstanding in the case of a taxpayer comprises of the tax demand, the interest thereon, because if it's been pending for 2 or 3 years, then there is Section 234B interest that gets added on. And often in a case where the appeals have been pending for 3 to 4 years, the interest component is almost as much as the demand, the quantum demand. And then there is the penalty that is levied wherever there is income escaping assessment. So the tax demand in a taxpayer's case comprises of 3 components: the quantum demand, the interest, and the penalty. Now, Vivad se Vishwas says that if you pay the quantum demand, then the tax department is willing to forego the concealment penalty and the interest component. And that is the most favorable scheme that any department could offer its taxpayers. And we're doing it because we want to end litigation, because we want people to get on with their lives and their businesses, and to forget about litigating tax matters. So it's an extremely beneficial scheme, and the scheme ends on the 31st of March 21. You have to file your application before the 31st of December, and you can pay the quantum demand by the 31st of March. So it's a wonderful scheme. If you have litigation pending, please use it to end litigation and buy peace of mind.
So it is more like, though on a different tangent, in the banking scheme, there is a scheme known as a one-time settlement. Let's assume there is a more even default, but if you are offered an OTS, and it is akin to that.
Absolutely, akin to that. And they introduced a similar scheme for customs and central excise as well. It was extremely successful, and people were very, very happy to participate in it. And, based on the success of that scheme, we've brought it in here. And this is better than the one-time settlement with the banks, because at the end of the one-time settlement, you still owe the bank, the loan, and you have to keep paying that up. Here, we're foregoing penalty, we're foregoing interest, you make the quantum payment, and that ends matters there.
It is just like where you say that rather you can say that everything gets synced in. Once
Absolutely.
the no questions thereafter asked, let's assume from
No questions. Why should there be questions?
so because a common man feels that somehow the image is such that even if you do that, lest it will come that you have acceded to that, there will be trouble. I'm just asking for a layman.
No. I mean, it's not possible to generalize, but what I would like to say is that as far as that year is concerned, it's, you see, what are the sort of additions that are being litigated? Take an example in the case of a salaried person. You made a claim that you're not entitled to, that we've examined. Why would there be any questions asked? You're not acceding to anything. You're paying the disputed demand and claiming a waiver of the penalty and the interest. I mean, you're virtually paying 1/3 of what is outstanding. And the case is closed. I mean, there's no further follow-up there.
This is Advocate Manish Seth wanted to ask a question directly. We have unmuted him.
Ma'am, very good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
मैम मैं एक बड़ी प्रैक्टिकल प्रॉब्लम जो है आपके साथ डिस्कस करना चाहता हूँ। जैसे अगर किसी का केस फिक्स होता है तो उसका जो नोटिस है वो आपने जैसे बताया है कि ईमेल के ऊपर आएगा। मैम ये कौन सी ईमेल के ऊपर आएगा? मेरा क्वेश्चन
ईमेल पे नहीं आएगा, ई फाइलिंग पोर्टल पे
आएगा। राइट,
आप टैक्स पेयर है ना, आप अपनी रिटर्न ई फाइल करते हैं।
जी मैम।
तो आपका ई फाइलिंग पोर्टल पे अकाउंट बना होगा।
जी बिल्कुल।
हमारी ये वेबसाइट है इनकम टैक्स इंडिया ई फाइलिंग .gov.in।
जी, मेरा रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन ये है मैम कि जैसे बीइंग प्रैक्टिसिंग एडवोकेट हमारे पास बहुत से लोगों की हम रिटर्न फाइल करते हैं। तो मैम हम जब रिटर्न, हम आजकल सॉफ्टवेयर्स यूज होते हैं जैसे जिनमें हम रिटर्न फीड करते हैं, रिटर्न अपलोड हो जाती है सॉफ्टवेयर्स के माध्यम से ऑनलाइन, मतलब ई वेरीफाई भी हो जाती है। लेकिन मैम उस पर्टिकुलरली किसी पोर्टल के ऊपर जाकर हम किसी की ये चीजें चेक नहीं करते, कोई भी नहीं करता। तो मेरा ये क्वेश्चन ये था कि क्या असेसी को सेपरेटली कोई एसएमएस या कोई ईमेल या उनकी कम्युनिकेशन के ऊपर कोई अलग सेपरेट नोटिस जाता है मैम?
गोइंग फॉरवर्ड, अगर जैसे डिपार्टमेंट इज एक्सट्रीमली प्रोएक्टिव, तो अगर आप अब भी अगर आप देखेंगे, आपको हमेशा व्हाट्सएप मैसेज आता है या मैसेज आता है कि आपका रिफंड जनरेट हो गया है, आपका रिटर्न प्रोसेस हो गई है, आपको आता है ना। तो इस तरह से आई एम श्योर कि डिपार्टमेंट कोशिश तो करेगा कि ये करें, बट फॉर नाउ नहीं, तभी टेक अ नोट ऑफ योर सजेशन और हम ये कह भी देंगे। लेकिन जो हम एम्फसाइज करना चाहते हैं और जो जरूरी है वो ये है, जैसे अब आप बिजनेस करते हैं या आप असेसी से डील करते हैं कोविड के टाइम में, तो आप अपना ईमेल तो चेक करते हैं ना। इसीलिए एक मुझे खत्म
जी प्लीज।
इसीलिए हमने टैक्स पेयर्स चार्टर का भी जिक्र किया है, जहां पे हम कह रहे हैं कि आप बी इन्फॉर्म्ड अबाउट योर अफेयर्स। अब जैसे कोई स्कीम आती है, पीछे PMGKY आया था और टैक्स एमनेस्टी स्कीम आई थी। उसमें हमने देखा था कि सबने अकाउंट बनाया, फिर कोई अपना ईमेल भूल गया, किसी ने वकील बदल लिया, तो बड़ा कंफ्यूजन क्रिएट हुआ था। अब इसमें जरूरी है कि हर टैक्स पेयर को अपने ई फाइलिंग अकाउंट का पासवर्ड याद रखना या उसी को यूज करना, बिकॉज उसी के जरिए आप अपनी रिटर्न फाइल करेंगे। उसी आपकी रिटर्न पे वही ईमेल आपका पॉइंट ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन होगा। सो इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट दैट ईच टैक्स पेयर मॉनिटर their e-filing portal carefully. अगर आप एडवोकेट हैं और आप किसी के लिए कर रहे हैं तो आप उनके बिहाफ पे उसको मॉनिटर करें, ये जरूरी है।
मैम बेसिकली 10 से ज्यादा ईमेल किसी भी रजिस्ट्रेशन में अलाउ नहीं करता इनकम टैक्स का सर्वर। दूसरी बात यह है कि बहुत सारे कई क्लाइंट्स हैं जो ईआरआई के माध्यम से अपनी रिटर्न्स भरवाते हैं। मैं सिंपल आपको एक एग्जांपल देता हूं कि हमारे हिंदुस्तान में एक क्लियर टैक्स करके एक वेबसाइट है जो कि लगभग काफी लोगों की इन लैक्स मतलब रिटर्न्स फाइल करती है। तो इसमें मैम पासवर्ड वगैरह भी यूज नहीं होता है और सिंपली वो डाटा कलेक्ट करते हैं क्लाइंट से, फीस चार्ज करते हैं और रिटर्न पोर्टल पे चली जाती है और बाद में उसका प्रोसेसिंग भी हो जाती है। बट ये जो क्वेश्चन अराइज होता है कि बहुत सारे लोग मैम जो जिनको मोबाइल में ओटीपी पढ़ना नहीं आता है मैम, वो अगर उनसे रिलेटेड अगर कोई कम्युनिकेशन डिपार्टमेंट करता है तो मैम वो कैसे इसको प्रैक्टिकली अगर हम देखें।
आई थिंक अगर आपका रजिस्टर्ड उस पे कोई आपका जो सेल फोन है उसके ऊपर अलर्ट तो डेफिनेटली आएंगे, अभी आते हैं फॉर योर सीपीसी
ये नोटिस से रिलेटेड मैम कोई आ नहीं रहा।
नोटिस तो नहीं आ सकता व्हाट्सएप पे यार।
किसी को कैसे पता लगेगा? मैं नोटिस की बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ मैम कि नोटिस उसके ऊपर आए, मैं ये कह रहा हूँ कि कैसे विकास सर, मैं ये पूछना चाहता था कि मतलब एक ले मैन को, आम व्यक्ति को कैसे पता लगेगा कि उसका केस फिक्स हुआ है?
मैम ही
आपको चेक करना है अपना जो आपका ई फाइलिंग पोर्टल पे अकाउंट है उसको यू हैव टू चेक। जैसे हम चेक करते हैं।
What he is trying to say is, I will take a just step forward. There was a judgment by Justice Rajesh Bindal in respect of law.
That you can
not on this
send.
aspect. Not
No,
on
that
this
you can
aspect.
send. It's a valid service on WhatsApp. Is that the one you're talking
No,
about?
that is on. Though it was on service matter, it said that let's assume a candidate has applied, and he sometimes never received the message that he's to come for the interview for this. So he said, besides uploading on the website, you should also send a message or the registered mobile number. That's what he's saying. Let's assume somebody sent a notice.
I think I believe that messages will be sent to the mobile, registered mobile. But otherwise, for now, what is in existence is that because we've had e-assessment now for the last 2 financial years, and notices are sent to the registered email address, and you have to check your e-filing portal. But I think going forward, there will be alerts on the mobiles also.
Thank you.
This is a question that says, if a search and raid takes place, how many years back can the department reopen the assessed cases? Because some feel that there should be some limitation for reopening or this thing.
So within 4 years, the assessing officer can pick up a case based on information that shows that there is income escaping assessment with the permission of the range head, and beyond 4 years with the permission of the, and up to 6 years with the permission of the commissioner concerned. Action under 148 can be taken.
So, ma'am, I think.
Is there any other question?
No, we have done with the questions. Before we part for the day, tomorrow we will be having a session on emotions and efficiency at work by Professor Dr. Raj Singh, who is the Chief Executive Officer in ARDA.
There is a question regarding TEPs.
Yeah, I will take that.
So let me just clarify 2 other aspects. There were survey cases in which there was, when we go out on a survey, it's usually conducted during working hours at the business premises of an individual. We do not go to residences in the case of a survey, unless there is an office located at a residential premises. Residences we only visit in the course of a search. Now, in survey cases where surveys had taken place and there was seized record with the territorial assessing officers, those cases are now being transferred to the central charges. So all future communications will be with the central charges. That was one aspect. All tax evasion petitions are also sent to the investigation wing for examination, and they grade them, and then they send them to the territorial jurisdiction for action to be taken. We're not sure now how that is going to be handled, but all tax evasion petitions are sent to the investigation wing. If your local officer is, holding out threat of any tax evasion petition, please ignore it, because tax evasion petitions are to be handled only by the investigation wing. Those are just a few points that were left out. There was some question about TEP coming up.
The question is, the department decided to open a TEP against one person and ITO asked for permission. But meanwhile, all TEP transferred to investigation wing Chandigarh. Will TEP will be investigated, or will it be closed as permission was pending?
So you see, again, when you spoke about artificial intelligence and data mining, we have a wonderful database. It's called 360-degree profiling, where all the transactions pertaining to a person received from different sources, central excise, GST, DGFTD, banks, insurance companies, all of that data, the AIR information. Then we also had non-filer data. There was the demonetization data. All of that data is profiled with your PAN. So we have a 360-degree profile of a person, and the TEP is then matched. We also have all your returns that have been e-filed. So that TEP will be matched with the data we have. And, we cannot obviously inquire and investigate all the TEPs. But wherever it is felt that there is a discrepancy between the data that is available, the returns that are being filed, those would be taken up for examination, either scrutiny or any other action.
For a common man, what do you mean by TEP?
Tax evasion petition. Tax evasion petition.
Because there are students also, they would not.
The tax evasion petitions are received from complainants, from taxpayers, from informers. So TEPs are not prepared by the department. They are received by the department from complainants, from informers, from various sources.
Somewhat like whistleblower or inform, both, because whistleblower could be within the department, or one is asking what is the process of filing TEP?
What is the process of filing? So I think the best way and the most direct way would be to address your tax evasion petition to the Director General of Investigation in that area. So the DG Investigation sits in Chandigarh, and you can address your TEP to the DG Investigation, and that is the most direct way of getting, getting it noticed. And then it'll be assigned to somebody to inquire into and to look into.
So this also contains awards, like there are schemes wherein it says that if you inform someone, then there are awards, and which is the discretion of the government eventually, whether it's actually catalyzed that.
We have a reward scheme. I think the reward is probably, I'm not very certain, but I think it's 2 to 5% of the income which is detected. Tax that is detected, probably, yes. Tax, I'm not very clear about the scheme. Maybe the investigation wing will be in a better position to tell you. But there is a reward scheme for informers, and if action is taken on the basis of a TP and or an information that is supplied, then a percentage of the income or tax detected is the reward.
Can we use RTI to get the status on why we have not got the income tax refund, which is overdue for 3 years?
Why should you use the RTI? Use the grievance portal. We have two grievance. There's CP Grams and there is e-Nivaran. E-Nivaran is available on our website. You can easily, put your particulars there, or even contact your local office, your local territorial jurisdictional income tax office. We'll help you. That's a taxpayer grievance, and we are committed to all our taxpayers and to resolving such issues. You don't need to use RTI. Use CP Grams, use e-Nivaran, or just visit us in the local income tax office. And let me share my, for Punjab, if it pertains to Punjab, please feel free to email me directly. I assure you that we'll take it up. This is amritsar.ccit@incometax.gov.in.
And in respect of the CST and this thing, because I was preparing a case, the scheme is known as Grant of Reward to the Informers and Government Servants, policy of 2015. That was notified on 31st of July 2015. Per chance I have this, wherein the award has been refused.
We have a 2018 scheme, Pushpinder tells me, and the reward is 3% of the additional tax that is assessed, is it? And it's got to, the reward is released only after the case is confirmed in first appeal, in second appeal, and concealment penalty. It's inappropriate to give you half-baked information. I'm not aware of the facts. We can take it up another time. But broadly, that is it. I mean, from what I know, that the case, after an assessment is framed, it is tested in appeal. So you have first appeal with the Commissioner of Appeals, and then a second before the tax tribunal, which is the final authority for all matters of fact. So once it has been confirmed by the tribunal, then the reward is released. And 3% as per the 2018 scheme of the additional tax that is sustained. So that, in a nutshell, is the reward scheme.
We are taking the last question.
Then again, please contact your local investigation wing to take your information there and also find out about the scheme. They're the best people to tell you about it.
The last question, he says, Vikas says, does the informer come to know that upon his complaint / TEP, the department is acting upon or not?
Does the informer come to know whether the department is acting on his TEP? One of the things that we are committed to doing, as you saw in the Taxpayers Charter, is maintaining a confidentiality of the income tax proceedings. If you've observed, even the press notes now regarding the searches that are being undertaken are withholding names, etc. It's only the generic, the area of the industry or is mentioned. So since income tax proceedings are confidential, we do not release information pertaining to any taxpayer under RTI, etc., to anybody. If you've filed a TEP, if action is taken, I'm afraid that that is not something that is going to be put in the public domain. If the action is warranted, it will be taken, and I don't think there's any way of, given that we're committed to maintaining confidentiality, that it is appropriate.
Emotions and Efficiency at Work by Professor Dr. Raj Singh, Executive Officer, ARK Educate, Bengaluru, who is a former Vice Chancellor of Ansar University, former Vice Chancellor of Riyadh Bara, former Vice Chancellor of GD Goenka, and former Vice Chancellor of MIT University. and he's also a TED Talk speaker. So kindly do join us tomorrow at 5 p.m. And the different facets of the faceless assessment system have been very elucidatedly explained, and a lot of issues which came in the mind of a common man. I'm quite sure that, as they say, that the dark clouds have been dispelled. It can be only sunshine with the rays being cleared, and one would be able to understand, because once you have the little steps to understand, then the broader steps of life can always be understood. And thank you once again, ma'am, for giving us the insights.
Thank you. I truly value the opportunity to be able to reach out to to your audience. And I only want to say that the Income Tax Department is changing. We're increasingly focused on customer service, which is our taxpayers. And we are also, we're also committed to strengthening our stakeholders. So whether it is the entities that are reporting to us with the specified financial transactions, or people who are deducting tax on our behalf and depositing it in government accounts, we're committed to strengthening their networks, and we're committed to services that enable us to add value to what they do, and also to the services that we provide. So help us to help you all, and feel free to reach out. The CP Grams, which is on the website is the CP Grams and e-Nivaran. So CP Grams, the website is pgportal.gov.in, and e-Nivaran is on our income tax website. So feel free to use those for grievance redressal. And please help us to help you, to marginalize your tax worries. Thank you.
Thank you. And we are quite sure that from Vivad to Vishwas would be translated more into reality.
Yeah.
Since once the confidence is reposed in a common man, the message reaches loud and clear, and things always become better. Stay safe, stay blessed, and we will catch up tomorrow. Thank you once again, ma'am.
Thank you, Jay.